Hello, welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, October 31st, 2018, and this is episode 77. My name is Carol. I'm known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. Show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog and also in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. If you would like to get in touch, please do so via private message on Ravelry by leaving a comment on YouTube or by leaving a comment in the group, and I promise you I will get back to you. Hi everyone, happy Halloween! This is the closest I'm going to get to a Halloween costume this year. I thought it was a good opportunity to show off my new Venetian mask. Today is also our youngest son's birthday. Yes, he was born on Halloween 29 years ago. My doctor at the time actually had a daughter who had been born on Halloween, and she called her little spook, but I always have referred to Colin as my Halloweenie. So we went out last night as a family to a local pub for wing night and celebrated his birthday that way. I'm going to take this off now because it's not that comfortable and it's a little hard to see, and I'll tell you more about it in a while. There, that's better. I'm just going to set it aside over here. Be right back. Hello again. Hope you've all been well for the last few weeks. As if you are a returning viewer, you will know that I have been away in Europe on what's turned out to be just the trip of a lifetime, and I will definitely talk more about that in the latter part of the podcast, but I will proceed as normal for the beginning part. So I have actually a finished project, several works in progress. I have some sewing this week, actually some quilting, and also I'll talk a little bit about what's up and coming, and I did do some reading too since I saw you last. So I had thought my first show back might be kind of lacking in material, and as it turns out I have quite a bit to share with you. So pull up a chair, pour yourself a beverage of choice, depending what time of the day it is. Well, I don't even care, it's noon somewhere, so drink whatever you like. I have got some tea with me here. I'm going to take a sip, and I can feel a piece of lint or hair or something there on my lip. That's better. Nothing fancy, just orange pico in my chickadee mug. Excuse me, I have had a cold the last couple of weeks, so you might hear a little bit of frogginess in my voice. I might have to clear my throat once in a while, but hopefully it doesn't interfere too much. So I'm really excited to be back. You know, it's always good to go away, but it feels great to come home, that's for sure. First on the list, what am I wearing? I'm wearing my Dusty Road by Carol Feller. I knit this, I started it last fall and finished it early spring at the end of February, and I'm actually wearing it. It's cool enough, it's rainy out today, and it's cool enough to actually wear a sweater, at least for a while. So I've got it on, so let's just give you a quick look. It's a raglan shaped, a raglan sleeve sweater with lace sleeves and then a lace panel that goes down each side. And it is knit in Malabrigo Arroyo in the Purpurous colorway, which is 872. So I'm not sure if I've actually worn it before, maybe once before. So it felt good to go to my sweater drawer and actually pull a sweater out to wear today. Because I knit several last fall, winter, and haven't really worn them yet because I didn't finish them till like springtime. So that's first on the list. The second is a finished project. Let's lean over here and get it. I actually finished this before I left and had it blocking. So this is fresh off the blocking wires. This is my Learning to Cry by Helen Stewart. The yarn I used was Alpha Bee Yarns Luxe Bee. That's the solid one here in the Duchess de Brabant colorway. And then I used Katya Silk Mohair in color 701. And as you'll see, it gradiates from a pink to kind of a light gray to a dark gray. So I'll give you the drive-by here. So I think it turned out really pretty. and actually turned out to be a good size. I had to omit the last repeats of garter stitch and lace because I didn't have enough yarn for the garter stitch section, but it's actually turned out to be a really nice size, so I'm actually not too unhappy with that. That gives you a look at it there. I guess I would tuck this one around too. I think I love the lace border. It's so airy, pretty. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Forgive me, I haven't updated project pages. I still have quantities I have to add for a number of things and some photos. But I'll try and get to that this week. Here, I'm gonna adjust my chair. Yeah, so there's finished project. I didn't expect to have that either when I left. I'm going to unwrap this because it's quite warm on top of the sweater, and I'll set it aside. So this was the fifth shawl, fourth shawl, can't remember, from the Helen Stewart's Shawl Society 3, which was based on The Secret Garden. And lean out a shot again here. So I think it was the day before I left. Oh, it's warmer, it's cooler out there now, so the furnace is kicking in inside, so I hope that doesn't sound too loud. Yeah, I think we got our next, and I think it's the final shawl pattern, I think it was the day before we left, or maybe it was while I was gone, so I haven't really given it much of a look or much thought as to what yarn I'll use for it, but that'll be up and coming probably in the next week or two. So I did do some knitting. Actually, what I'm going to show you first, I just picked up a couple of days ago. Didn't take it with me on my trip, and that's my Honeybee Dance socks, also by Helen Stewart, by the part of the Handmade Sock Society collection. So I've had the first one finished for a little while, and it's knit from Black Cat Custom Yarn Everyday Sock in the Champagne colorway. And since I got home, I think I was around, somewhere around here. And so I've knit down, done the heel flap and heel turn, gusset, have decreased now, and done I think a repeat or so past the decreases. So well on my way with those. I think I have 3 more pattern repeats before I do the toe, so that shouldn't take me too long. I'm kind of in my mind in a finish it up frame of mind. There's some projects I would like to cast on, but I really want to finish some first, including the next socks in this collection. I think I shared the pattern with you last week. I always should point out that this section, where is it, right here, this little cabled braid, that is not the way it's supposed to be. I screwed up on the first sock, didn't realize it till well into, I think, the leg, and said, well, I'm not going to rip it out for that. So I just repeated the mistake on the second sock. So these are slightly different than the originals. And then one project I did take with me were my Boo socks, which are knit from Sea Turtle Fiber Arts Ridley sock in their Struckles pattern. And this is the Boo colorway. I picked this up at Knit City a few weeks ago. These are Halloween inspired, as you might notice from the name. You can see the orange and black and purple and white. And I have them, this sock done the whole leg into the heel flap and just beginning the gusset. And it worked out really well because I ended on this black stripe here, and I was really hoping it would turn out this way, and it did. My last, or first row, I should say, around the, I think my first row around the heel flap and gusset was black, and now it's the purple, or it might have been the purple. In any case, it lined up with the pattern, so I'll have a kind of a a block of, bigger block of this purple in the instep area, but I like that there's no little thin line of the orange or something. So I was quite happy with how that worked out. To do that, I had to make my leg a little bit shorter, about ½ inch shorter than I prefer. But I think in general, that was the way to go. So I got this far on the, got to this point on the plane ride home, and then got to work. I'd cast on the second sock and worked on it some, and I picked that up and did a little more knitting on the way home. But you can see I still have quite a ways to go on the second sock before I can do the heel flap and gusset. As you can probably tell if you're new to the podcast, I often knit my socks concurrently on two separate needles. I just find that motivating to work in between them, and when I'm done I have a whole pair. I don't always do it, but that's how I seem to knit my socks more and more. One more sip. So my final work in progress. Look away if you do not want to be spoiled. They are the Downtown Mystery Sock Knit Along by Lori Law of Ocean Wind Knits. And I have completed up to the end of clue 3, and we just received clue 4, I think it was yesterday, which basically finishes off the socks. So I'm glad to sort of be caught up. I was caught up by the time the final clue came out. The yarn I'm using for that is the Cyborg's Craft Room, a Sockolate base in the Stepping Stones colorway. And I like how they're knitting up so far. So again, look away if you don't want to be spoiled. I've got two socks. There they are. They are knitting these for my husband for Christmas. So you can see it's kind of a textured stitch pattern running on the leg. Now this features the, I can't remember what the heel is called, if it's called something in particular, but it's not a standard heel flap and gusset sock. You begin increasing with the ribbing for the heel area, then you turn the heel, and then you decrease stitches for the gusset. So I've completed that process, and now it's basically carry on down the leg and then do the toe. I always like trying new techniques, and I think it's a really interesting way to construct this area, and I'm curious to see how it will fit. It seems to have quite a bit of room through the gusset area, so that for people who have a high instep and find socks often tight across this area, this might be one to try. My only concern is that being a mystery sock, when it said to knit 5 repeats of the leg pattern, I followed that, thinking that maybe the heel, I should say not realizing that the next step would add quite a bit of length to the leg. And so it's got quite a long leg to it, longer than I normally would knit. I would have, in retrospect, knit only 4 repeats of the leg pattern. And I'm a little bit concerned. I have like about that much left for each sock. I just weighed, I think, 16 to 17 grams. My husband has a size 11 or 10 and a half, I think, shoe. I'm a little bit concerned about having enough yarn to finish the socks. I'm considering, I don't want to, I'm considering ripping back and taking off one leg repeat and redoing the heel and gusset. The other part of me says, oh, live a little and see how far you get. What I'm going to do is a little bit of calculation. I'm going to sort of guesstimate how much yarn I used for for each section and see if maybe I won't have enough. I'm really not sure. I haven't sat down and done that math yet. I'm taking a really close look, but I'm a little bit nervous about running out on or near the toe. So I'll let you know how I get along with that next week. So anyway, yeah, one more look. Downtown Mystery Socks by Lori Law. I'm always looking for places to put things. I'm going to jiggle the camera here a bit, sorry. And I have a feeling I said that was my last work in progress, and I lied. One more that I have that I was working on before I left is Time Trade by Caitlin Hunter. It's a shawl, which is a rectangular shawl with a diagonal, each end is diagonal, runs on the diagonal. So the yarn for that, pardon me, is Midnight Cravings. And it's their Sweet Sock. And the main color is Amethyst Brooch. The second main color is Solomon's Robe, and then I used a mini skein set for the other part. All the details of those color names are on my project page. The mini skein set was called Tapas Bar, I think. So start out using the mini skeins. You can see it's based on a feather and fan pattern with lots of garter stitch ridges in between. And then once you're done with those, you break into your main color 1 and you alternate it with a big section of the main color 2 in the feather and fan. And I'm on the second repeat of that section. So then after I finish that, I can't remember what comes up. I think I alternate these two colors, but in smaller amounts. So I'm not sure how well that's showing up. If I can get it all in screen at once. That's pretty good. I continue to just love this project. I don't know what it is about it. It's normally I would find a scarf or a rectangular stole style of project a bit boring. I think part of it is the color changes and then the pattern changes, different sections of stitches, and I love seeing this Solomon's Robe knit up. It's just such pretty colors. The light's not great today. Like I said, it's raining outside, so it's kind of gray, and it's it's before lunch, so I don't have the afternoon light through my window there yet. So hopefully the colors aren't too bad. But anyway, I just love this project, every stitch of it. So I love when a project really holds your attention like that. Bonus. As I mentioned, I also have some quilting to share with you this week. Just before I left on holidays, I placed an order with Craftsy for a sweater kit, which I'll show you in a minute. And also, while I was on the website, I thought I would take a look at some of their quilting cotton collections. And I ended up buying one called, it's from Boundless Fabrics collection. I'm not sure. Boundless is not a name I'm familiar with as far as fabric companies go, but the collection name was Sweet Reverie. And I think what hooked me in were the bicycles. And it's basically a fabric collection that is reminiscent of Paris. There's Eiffel Towers, there's beautiful flowers. Don't want to get these out of order because I've squared up these blocks and have them all piled in a particular order. Let me just grab this one. Here's one I also really love. So I actually have enough fabric. I bought the Fat Quarters collection and have enough fabric in there to actually do 2 different quilts. But this one that I'm doing is Rainy Days. and it's from the Quilt As You Go Made Modern book by Jira Brandvig. I love this book. This quilt's been on my radar for a long time. I'll see if I can get the picture that shows it a little bit more in full. And so I think it was the day after we got home, I started cutting out blocks and started working on this project. So as you can see, it has a band of contrasting fabric on each side, and then you lay them alternately this way and that way. And she suggests if you want, you can cut the squares a little bit askew, which is what I have done because I liked the way that looked. So it's only a 1/4 inch difference from, I took from center and I offset it just a 1/4 inch. So it's not a huge diagonal change, but just enough to make it kind of fun. And then I picked up 2 of the fabrics to use as fabric, as quilt backing. So this one has all the little French words on it, and then this is just kind of a watercolor. Not sure how well it shows up with some kind of just writing designs on it. And then I picked up just a little piece of fabric at my local fabric store just to use as binding. So I thought it kind of picked up some of the shades of pink and peach and cream. So I finished squaring up all my blocks yesterday, and first I laid them all out, decided what order I wanted to put them in, and then I squared them up. So I'll put a picture in here that'll give you an idea of how it's all going to look when it's sewn together. So I'm anxious to get going on that next step, and then it shouldn't take me too long to finish up. So I guess that's partly acquisitions, and then as I mentioned, I purchased a sweater kit from Craftsy, and what started that was I saw this sweater called the Throughstone sweater by Bristol Ivy on Ravelry, followed the link and discovered that it was a Craftsy kit, and I think there are some videos that you can watch to knit along. So this is a cardigan, as you can see, and it has a really nice colorwork yoke. Here's another better picture of the yoke. And I just loved the colors and the style. Reading the pattern a little bit, I see you can also knit it as a pullover instead of a cardigan, so I'm not sure which choice I will make. It's also quite a big, very large cardigan. Has a lot of positive ease, which I don't tend to like, so I will probably make one of the smaller sizes and add some waist shaping so it's not quite so big and baggy. So it is knit from Highland Sport by Cloudspun, I think it's called. Is that Craftsy's label? Oh, Cloudborn Fibers. Highland Sport, and I haven't even looked at the colors. They're just numbers. So it's like this kind of taupey brown, another shade, kind of a beigey color, kind of a sand, and then this lovely teal. So I'm looking forward very much to getting going with that. I see it's like a knit along, and I don't know if it's even a knit along in a group on Ravelry or if it's just through Craftsy and following the videos. Haven't investigated that closely yet, but hoping to cast that on within the next week or 2, I guess. I've also got some reading done. Where did I put my books? Right here. Again, excuse me for leaning out of shot. I took a couple of, well, before I left, I was reading Little Town on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder, and I left this book at home, but I've picked it up again since I got home. But what I did is I just took a couple of Agatha Christie mysteries with me to read, and so I got through Murder is Easy, or also known as Easy to Kill. I finished that, and then began and then there were none, and finished that after I got home. This book, pardon me, I'm very familiar with. I've read it several times, but also in high school. Our high school put on a production of this play, and I was involved in the costumes. So I saw lots of rehearsals and had a lot to do with that, with the play. So I know the storyline back and forth. So even though I knew how it was going to turn out, it was still fun to read it again, almost with fresh eyes, because it's been so long since I've read it. And also knowing who done it, reading it with that perspective too, and seeing ways in which, if you really were paying attention, you might have some idea of who committed the murders. But this is definitely a favorite of mine as far as Agatha Christie books go. I haven't looked yet to see what the next book is, but I might, maybe I'll finish up my Little House books because they're coming to an end. I just have a couple more of those to read, and then I might get back to my, maybe get back to Agatha Christie. Something else I'm anxious to get to is a new book by Kate Morton. She is an Australian, I think she's Australian, author. She writes some really cool books. There's usually, there's a mystery to it, and her books alternate between modern life and the past, and the story between the two times kind of gradually unravels. And I think I'll put the title at the bottom of the screen here. The new one is something about Clockmakers, or it has something to do with a clock in it. I know I pre-ordered it on Audible, so it's probably sitting in my Audible library waiting for me, but I haven't gotten around to downloading it and starting to listen to it yet. But I am looking forward to that. I love this author. If you like suspense in any way, definitely look her up. I really, really like her writing. Sorry, I'm gonna clear my throat there. So I guess that brings us to, I'm just gonna make sure I have everything. Yeah, that brings us to what's been going on in my life. As I mentioned, it's Halloween, and we celebrated our son's birthday last night. That's the downside of being born on Halloween. You always have stuff going on the day of your birthday. The upside is it's fun to have a Halloween themed party. We did that many times over the years. You never have to search too hard for a birthday theme. And we had some good good ideas, or good party. One year I did like a ghost cake. We had witch's brew, which I think was pop with ice cream, and you stirred it up and it kind of bubbled. Little tombstone sandwiches, things like that. Last year his girlfriend threw him a surprise costume party, so that was fun. Oh, and I have to mention, last podcast I told you that my niece was expecting at any moment, and she very kindly gave birth to her little boy just a couple of days before we left on holidays. So we're all thrilled. She just looks radiant, she and her husband, and they have a little boy named Jeremy. So the baby shower is next weekend, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to meeting the newest member of our family. Now, I had made a quilt for her out of some fabrics that my mom had given me, kind of vintage fabrics, I guess you'd call them, and I ended up giving them to her this fall, before the baby was born. But I'm trying to decide what to do for a shower. I really want to make those, oh, I didn't even write this in my show notes because I didn't plan to talk about it. They were like monster pants. I'll put a link in the show notes, and I might put a picture up here just to remind you what I'm talking about. I haven't got on that yet, but I don't think they'll take too long, and maybe I can get some yarn and knit those up before next weekend, and maybe, pardon me, buy a couple of little shirts or something to go along with it. So we'll see. I really should do that because they are cute. And she's got just the right, well, both her and her husband have just the right kind of sense of humor that they would find that appealing. I ended up knitting her a sock monkey hat a couple of years ago, and she ended up getting engaged while she was wearing it. So she's definitely up for kind of quirky knitwear, and that's always fun to make. Yeah, so that brings us to our holiday. If you are new, my husband and I just came back from 2 weeks in Europe. The company he works for every 2 years takes their 25-year and their 35-year employees on a cruise as a thank you for their service. And every other year, his company does a trip as an incentive for their customers. And so the employee cruise is often a preview of the customer cruise that will take place the following year. Not always, but often. And they have someone along from the company they use to help organize the trips. They generally have at least one person from that company along, and they will do some site visits during the trip to check it out for the next year. So this year, there are only 2 locations that we visited that the customer cruise will visit next year, but we were on the same ship that they will be taking. And that was called Oceania Marina. It's a smaller ship, and the company next year is actually hiring the whole ship and putting together their own travel itinerary. So it's going to be very special for the customers. And so there are just so many things I could tell you about, and A, I don't want to bore you. B, it was just so amazing. I almost feel embarrassed to tell you because I just feel so lucky, and I don't want to feel like I'm showing off, because it really was amazing. We have witnessed, because we've gone on a number of the customer cruises as hosts. My husband and I, we've become accustomed to his company's special touches, and never dreamed that they would do the same sorts of things for their employees, but they were just as amazing to their employees as they are to their customers. And we were just treated so special. We had excursions planned in every port, and special every day we had lunch, or pretty well every day had lunch provided, and we're not just talking a hamburger or a cheeseburger or a sandwich. They were beautiful sit-down lunches, several courses, and we had several special dinners that were planned for us in different venues in the cities that we were in. Just such lovely touches that just made you feel so special. I was trying to think, so I guess 3 things that really stood out were the food and drinks. As I say, we had lunches every day, and the food was just amazing. I tell you, after the first couple days, we all felt like we gained like 20 pounds. And we learned to pace ourselves, like eat a small breakfast because you know you're going to have a big lunch. And then most evenings we ate on the ship. And we had, as a group, we would eat in the dining room, or every staff member, every employee over the course of the trip had 3 meals in specialty restaurants on the ship with the company's owner or her daughter, who heads up the marketing department, and her husband, who also works for the company. So those were lovely dinners. That was for a much smaller smaller group. Just you'd have like 3 other couples with you, and or 2 other couples with you, I should say. It was just, that was really neat too. One of the restaurants we went to was just a room for one large table that seated 10 people, or sat 10 people, and you could order off the menu of the steakhouse restaurant that was on one side of this room, or the Italian restaurant that was on the other side. And it was just a step above in service and presentation, and it was just amazing. Several of our tours involved visiting wineries. We had one day where we visited, this was in Croatia, visited a place that makes olive oil, and went from there to a flour mill and tasted their bread and wine, and an assortment of meats and cheeses and breads, and went from there to a winery where we had lunch, and then went to another winery where we finished up with gold medal award-winning international wines from that area. I had to say that right. 2 wines, a white wine and a dessert wine from that winery that had won gold medals internationally, and they were just lovely. So again, just amazing. So that's what stands out in my mind, is the food was incredible. Another was just our opportunity to visit some really classic places. We began our cruise in Barcelona, so we visited the Gothic cathedral there, and the Sagrada Familia, which is a cathedral that's been in construction for, I can't remember how many years, well over 100 years. It was, the original part was designed by Gaudi. And we had been there in Barcelona in 2007 and noticed quite a big change between then and now. And we got to tour the inside, which was just the light coming in through the stained glass was just stunning. We stopped in Monaco and toured the Grand Casino there, and also saw the church where Princess Grace and Prince Rainier are buried. Again, Cameron and I had been there before, but we hadn't toured inside the casino other than just the original main area, but we got to go in and look around. And then we saw the changing of the guards at the palace, which was really neat. Saw the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Again, we had done that before, but it was worth doing again. And interesting just to see again somehow how things had changed since we were last there. We toured the Vatican. Last time we had just toured St. Paul's Basilica, stood in a long line outside for a long time before we got in. This time our tour included the Vatican Museum and the Sistine Chapel, which was just amazing to see. And then that afternoon we had a tour of the Colosseum. Last time we had just driven by it, got a quick snap out the bus window. So again, it was really cool to be able to take a much more detailed look at that and be inside and get a real sense of what the building would have looked like, and what what it would have been like all those many years ago. For me, we also saw Pompeii.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the big theater, Teatro Grande. Obviously, the first difference between the big and the small one was the size.
Which again, we had seen before, but we saw a totally different area than before, and learned more new things. I could probably spend a year there. We just had probably about an hour and a half. I wish I would love to go back again and again. I wish I could be there and go every day for a week, because there's so much to see and so much to learn. In Slovenia, we saw these amazing limestone caves, and then after that tour had toured a medieval castle. It was like 800 years old, and it's built into the mouth of a cave. That was amazing. And in Venice, of course, we saw St. Mark's Square. And we got to ride on a gondola. It was a romantic gondola ride for 4. They split the group up, so there were 4 per boat, but it was really cool. We were partnered up with well, I guess they're all long-time employees, because they're 25, or one employee's 20 or 35 years in service, but as someone that my husband's known for, well, both of us have known for a long time, so it was fun to be in the gondola with him and his girlfriend. So yeah, it was just so many things we got to see. We learned when we got, well, just I think it was yesterday, my husband sent a news article to me, I guess last day or two. Venice has just been under tons of water. I didn't realize, I've never been before. I know has canals, it's built sort of with water streets, and what I didn't realize is at high tide, the water actually comes up from the ground and floods the place. And so it was partway through our tour, and our tour guide on the way to our first stop had pointed out what looked like tables stacked in the street, and she said, those aren't tables, those are actually ramps for people to walk on when the tide comes in. And sure enough, we come out of one of our places, and there's water, and the ramps all set up, people on these. Well, we needed to get from where we were to go to tour the church, and we ended up having to walk through about this much water to get there, which is all very well and fine if you have, like, okay, maybe not that much, but a good amount, which would have been fine if you had maybe runners or boots or something. I just had sandals. I ended up getting my feet completely wet. But yeah, I guess just the last couple of days, Venice was really flooded, and I think it was up to about 1.5 meters. That's about 5 feet of water at one point, which is just unimaginable. And then I guess I would say the third thing that really stands out for me is just as I've talked about, just the special, extra special touches that his employer went to make this trip so one of a kind. So in the caves that I'll give you 2 examples. In the caves that we toured, you go in on a little railway train, get off, and you walk for about 1.5 kilometers, and they've got strategic lighting up the different limestone formations, and it's huge, it's cavernous, it's just amazing. And there's one area they call the cathedral, and as we started walking along, we heard saxophone music playing Amazing Grace, and so we just assumed they had music piped in. No. There was a saxophone player standing there playing Amazing Grace. And then he broke into the theme from the Pink Panther. So I've got a little clip of that. I'm going to put that here for you to enjoy. And then towards the end of the tour, you come out to an area, I can't remember if they call it the concert hall or the theater or something of that nature. And there was a saxophone player again playing, and they handed all of us a glass of champagne. So that's how we ended our cave tour. So I'm going to pull a clip of him playing the saxophone here too, just because it's so magical. So on our way out of the cave, on the little train, we passed, we had 2 trains passing us that were coming in for their tour. We'd had the whole place to ourselves for the duration of our tour, but we passed 2 trains going in that were just packed with people. And so we realized what a special tour we got, just being 34 of us. I guess with the tour guide and a couple extra people, it was closer to 36 or 37, but still a very small group. So we're very privileged to have that to ourselves. And then the last night in Venice, I think I had told you before I left that we were scheduled to have dinner at a palace. And so what we learned is that it was the palace where Richard Wagner, the composer, lived out the last 6 months of his life. And part of the palace is dedicated as a museum. His living quarters, living apartment, is dedicated as a museum to him. And now it's a casino. We didn't see where any of that gaming takes place. But so we pulled up in our boat, water taxi, I guess, or something like that. And there were 2 trumpet players on either side of the door blowing their horns to welcome us. And we came in, and there were 4 characters dressed up. I know one was Harlequin, so I'm not sure what time period that's from. But there they were doing a little dancing and mingling with our group, taking pictures. And then there was also a 3-piece band with like accordion and stuff there. And we came into a room, there was a bar and appetizers, and so we spent some time there with these characters and the music and such. And then we were given a tour of the museum area. And then we went into, and when we came in, we were immediately given a Venetian mask. It was tied on us. And so that's where I got the mask from. And so that was just really cool too. And then we were led into where we were having dinner, which was a room just for ourselves. And just there was a 4-piece like string quartet in all women that were dressed kind of like Marie Antoinette era style of dress, playing while we had dinner, and just had a really lovely dinner. I can't even describe how it makes you feel to know that that's all being done for you as a token of appreciation. I mean, not for me, for my husband and his fellow employees, and I got to tag along. I don't even know what to say beyond that. It was just a trip of a lifetime, truly. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye. I should be able to record next week. I'm not sure what day, but probably Wednesday or Thursday. And so take care until then. I look forward to hopefully showing you maybe a quilt that's done or mostly done, and maybe even a new cast on or 2. So thank you as always for watching. It's good to be back. Thank you for all of those who got in touch while I was gone. I definitely appreciated hearing from you and receiving your well wishes. So thank you for that. Yeah, have a great week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.